discussion. Give us an update. We've been tracking as you moved up to Idaho, as you moved up to Boise, which seems like a cultural shock or shift for those of us here from Southern California to go up there. Once you made that move, the next question was, do you maintain your consulting practice down here and around the country? And you kind of said, maybe no. Maybe I'm going to transition and buy a business, do something I haven't done before. And you were getting close to pull the trigger in a couple, and then you said no. Well, how's that search going here? Have you gotten any closer, made any decisions, any other near misses?
Well, I avoided a huge mistake.
You did?
Probably would have cost me about $300,000 in a couple of years of my life.
Wow, that's a big mistake.
And it was a deal I could have easily done, and I was getting my arms around it. And I asked for some feedback from people who knew me.
This was kind of I don't know if you want to identify what it was, but this is kind of, you were looking at service businesses. I don't know.
I was looking at servicing commercial kitchens, and it just wasn't a fit. And I found out why later. But I got some feedback from people that they basically said, what this business needs is not something you're really good at or want to do.
Other people told you this? That's a hard thing. That's a hard truth to tell somebody.
And the economics made sense. And if something pencils like, hey, what's your risk reward and that, hey, should you do it?
Here's the cost. Here's the upside. Here's how I think I can improve
Here's the downside. And can you get your arms around the business? But it would have been something, it would have been dealing with a lot of hot oil and a lot of repetition. And what I found actually is I like to figure things out. I like to see how things are currently working and how could they work and what can we do to change that. And this was a franchised business, so you really were limited in what you could actually change.
Yeah, they got a model and they want you to follow. That's what you're paying for.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I'm not a fan of normal American politics is you got to fit in like these two buckets, and I don't fit in those buckets. So being able to question
I think that's normal America across the board. I don't know if it's so much here in certain places like Southern California where you can be an odd duck, where they sort of appreciate eccentricity and differences. But where I grew up in the Midwest, it's all about fitting into a couple of boxes. When you come out of high school, there's a couple of boxes. There's the one your dad did. There's the one the neighbor did. There's a couple of choices, that's kind of limited in what you can do. And if you say, I want to try something different, everybody looks at you and goes, well, really?
But if you get into an industry or a career, in quotes, you get into it, you spend time in it. If you want to change something, there's switching costs. There's a lot of time and energy, and then switch to what? And the Idaho thing for me, actually, it was a good catalyst and really forced me to kind of sit back and go, what do I want to do?
Right.
It's probably not doing the same type of consulting I was doing before. It's just a different. Southern California has a huge entrepreneurial base of companies. There's always things to do
that need help and startups and right.
And so it forced me to kind of sit back and look at it. And when I got the feedback on the initial project acquisition I was really close to doing and pulling the trigger, it forced me to kind of sit back. And luckily I was going through this, was in the strategic coach program. I think I've talked about it earlier. And they have a process of helping you define your unique ability, which is essentially finding the verbs, the things you like to do that aren't hard for you.
Fishing, hunting, jumping, growing, thinking, whatever.
For me, it was analyzing, learning, researching, projecting what was possible. Those were my verbs. I love to untangle a mess, that you got a bit. To me, it was growing up, I always wanted if I could have 3 wishes, I'd like to be able to get the financial statements for different businesses. How does it really work? You're walking by a business, how much money do they make? How much do they have to invest? And so to me, figuring those things out and this process that I went through a strategic coach helped me define that. And then it really helped me define the types of businesses that would
fit that.
It would be a good fit. And one of the things is I do not have the profile, and they do you inventory what you do from a verb standpoint. You ask people around you, hey, what are my unique abilities? But you take some personality profiles. And what I found is I was not a coach. I am not good at just asking questions and sitting back and waiting for you.
You want to jump in and start dissecting and doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's kind of like, there was an old Saturday Night Live skit where the guy's like, your computer's broke. He fixes computers, and he's like, move, I'll just fix it.
Right.
And so you finding what is where you're excel at things and give you energy. And it can seem like a cliche, but there's not a lot of real processes out there to do it.
Now, I would think most industrial service businesses, kind of you're looking at painting, cleaning, collecting, fixing, doing something like that. That's very repetitive type of stuff. It's not something that you can find other efficient use of the resources. Maybe you get another truck. Maybe you have a different process you follow to go collect the oil and do it or something. But once you do it, it's rinse and repeat.
Well, and that was part of the process and realization, and I found and ended up understanding that, and now I'm looking at an opportunity where it's at a point, it's a company that does commercial services but can capitalize with technology, especially with this minimum wage trend, and helping their customers get more efficient. And there's kind of a continual flow of technology, so you're trying to figure out which technologies to invest in, which ones to provide services in, equipment in, and try to anticipate where the hockey puck is going,
right,
instead of just doing the same process over and over. So that was helpful, and it gave me confidence to look for something that had those type of aspects. And the guy that's selling it, he doesn't want to do new things, and it's kind of a nice match where it's like he's done these things, but it's like the industry keeps evolving, and to him it's not interesting to learn. It's
painful to him, yeah,
right. And so finding those points in time, and whether or not the deal works or not, but at least it helped me identify.
So why
better
wouldn't
fits.
you want to just be a startup on your own here? I know there's no cash flow immediately, but why wouldn't you want to take something and come up with a new solution?
Well, one of the things is I took the Colby profile, and there is a profile of an innovator,
Mm-hmm.
and I do not have that profile.
Really? Okay.
And
what's in the innovator that you don't have?
Well, coming up with things from nothing or tinkering with things and building things up. How should they be? I'm more in modification.
Mm-hmm.
And as I did the process, I really understood why I wrote Transform Your Company, because it basically was I took what my unique ability was. I like to research things. I like to see how things worked and how things could be, and then explain that abstract philosophy and bring it, okay, how can you best, I'm looking to modify it. To me, the problem with a lot of these great innovative ideas is, okay, what's the order you should implement them in? Because they bring them at you. The creator of Strategic Coach, he has a really high innovation score. He's an innovator. And so every month he's coming up with every quarter a new concept.
Mm-hmm.
And so he likes to do that. I like to more research things, figure them out, and then, okay, what to do.
I never heard anybody put it that way, but I guess I would probably score myself having not taken the test on the innovator side because, for example, one of the things I did a number of years ago was build some bars and restaurants. I'm Irish. I thought it'd be fun to own an Irish pub type of thing, and I knew nothing about the business, and I sort of got into it and came up with some ideas. And I did it a couple times, and I thought, to me, the greatest satisfaction was, and I said this, just what you said, taking something from nothing and turning it into something, taking just a pure essence of an idea and then watching it turn into reality. What I quickly discovered, though, is I hated the operation thereafter. The fun for me was creating it. Once it was created, it was a nightmare running it. Every night it gets trashed. Every night things break. Every night people drink too much and throw up and do all these things. It was like, oh my God, this is just horrible. It's like throwing a party at your house every single night. I hated that. But I love the idea of taking something from nothing to seeing it actually take shape.
Well, but the ironic thing is, there are people who love to to entertain, to literally have a party every night.
Yeah, we found a manager who loved doing that every single night.
And they love to take care of people.
Yes.
They like to take care of their regulars. Oh, that's just Ron, you know.
Yeah.
He's had a little too much tonight. And that's one of the things that came from this unique ability is just because it's not your unique ability doesn't mean that it's not someone else's.
Yeah. No, we found somebody who loved that, who every night just thrived on that. And I hated that. So I really should be somebody that should just build things and then flip them and sell them to somebody and get them out of the way.
Well, you can flip them and sell them, but you can also develop those teams of the people who love process, who love to do the same thing all the time.
Right.
What I found, one of the other eye openers for me was I do due diligence on companies. Obviously I look at their financial statements, I look at their competitive environment. But now, be able to do people due diligence, to really look under the hood and identify what's missing or what's overrepresentative. Because if you have a company full of all of idea people and no people that have the
no managers
systematized in that,
right, you
got a real issue. And so now there's some tools out there where you can literally quantify your team. Where I've been involved with acquisitions, and a lot of times that first year, you're just figuring out what drives you nuts about people.
Yeah.
And if you could figure that out right away, and I heard the story this week about the owner of a company. He made a big hire, thought this person was going to be their right-hand person, and this is going to be great. And he was very quick start, goes fast, wants quick answers, wants to move. And she was very detailed and hated to give an answer until she was absolutely sure it was right. So it's pretty easy to get off to the wrong start there.
Yeah.
When you got someone
two
like,
different
give me
styles.
and one of the things she hated the most in her triggers was being forced to give an answer when she wasn't ready. So you're just set up for now. But when they identified that ahead of time, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, we got to either work this out, or they call them triggers, they're going to be shooting at each other.
You remind me of a story, maybe this fits. My father was a very successful sales manager, regional manager for Chrysler Corporation. And we moved all over the country. And he seemed to be the turnaround guy. They'd send him to some distressed region, and he'd take it from from last to first. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, we were moving to Pittsburgh, and we're doing it all over again. And we moved all over the country doing that. And I asked him once later in life, I said, what made you good at that? What? And he said, well, I'm not sure. He said, it just sort of came to me. I seem to have the ability to do it. He said, but one thing he said I learned early on, I just throw this out for whatever it's worth. He said, when I would come in, it was obviously a distressed region. And I'm obviously coming in, I have a reputation, and everybody thinks, uh-oh, he's going to fire everybody, he's going to change everything, look out, everybody's upset. Everybody's scared. Everybody's running for cover. And he said, I would do nothing for the first 30 days. Nothing. And he said, I would just go in there every day and look at the reports, and I'd listen. I wouldn't give any opinions. I wouldn't fire anybody. I wouldn't change anything. He said, I just really wanted to get a sense of what was really working. He said, but what the unexpected consequence was everybody calmed down. And they weren't panicked, and they weren't afraid. And then they didn't resist me. Whereas if I tried to come in and change from the word go, they'd say, no, this won't work, can't do that, never done that before. So he said, I did it because I wanted to get some sense of what's going on. He said, but it also calmed the whole thing down, and then I could start to make changes, and people trusted me. And I thought, well, that's just common sense wisdom that he didn't read a book or anything, just sort of came to him doing this over and over and over again. I don't know that most of us will do that. You're going to buy a business, and the first thing you're going to want to do is go change stuff.
No, not necessarily. I think understanding the culture of a business. I'm on the board of another company, and we acquired this company, in the last 6 months, and understanding the culture, the good and the bad parts of it, before you make the changes. Because if you start breaking things, then it's all on you.
Yeah, right. Right.
And when you understand what are the essentials, I had an earlier guest on, Elliot Schwartz, and he hired successfully a CEO. And a lot of times that just doesn't work, hiring a president and becoming a CEO. And he said, we interviewed a lot of people, but the one thing is really different.
As I recall, it was like his company, too, his baby, too, and turning it over to somebody.
He was not only his baby, it was him and his former wife's baby.
Yeah, right.
So they divorced and stayed business partners.
That's always difficult.
And hired somebody. And what really set this leader apart was he wanted to know what makes this company work. What's its culture? What has been working? And he really wanted to understand that before he made any suggestions, because inevitably there's good things. If most companies go out of business. Most foreign companies don't survive.
They're making some money. They're doing something right.
Well, and finding out what's good, because you need something kind of as a thread. If you change everything, there's no thread.
Right.
There's no hey, this still is there. This is all the new guy's idea.
Right.
Versus that really doing the due diligence and understanding the culture. Because when people feel understood, you hear it in negotiations and things like that. To move it forward, that people have to feel understood. Like, okay, our position and why is really understood. Now, we might have to change it, but at least that connection's been made. And I've learned, one of the things I learned early on doing acquisitions for a public company was some of the best deals on paper with my numbers were the worst ones after the fact. And
really?
some of the worst ones on paper turned out to be the best ones. And most of the time it was related to the team that was running it, or ended up running it, or the leader, that they had the ability to deal with the inevitable issues instead of kind of keep doing the same thing and not getting the results. Because inevitably you got to make some pivots and some changes to things, and that's important. But the culture of figuring things out, I really like Formula One racing. And there's
really? Okay.
I do. It's interesting, and there's an American team now, and it's done quite well. He was a NASCAR racer, Gene Haas, but he's gone over there, and they've been very successful, and they're doing better than two of the most successful old line English racing companies, Williams and McLaren. And one of the drivers said, and they're on a shoestring budget, that the first 2 years they don't get any prize money. And
what?
And it's like $100 million a year to fund these things.
And you don't get any prize money?
You don't get any prize money. It's kind of your initiation. Well, they're doing extremely well. And one of the drivers said, who had raced for McLaren and another team, said one of the big differences is there's not a non-blame culture. They're not looking to blame somebody for something. They're just looking to figure it out.
Right.
And that's a cultural thing.
And as the famous quote goes, I think Ronald Reagan said this and others have said it, it's funny how much you can get done if nobody cares who gets the credit.
Yeah.
Or the reverse, the blame. If everybody's just trying to get the answer and not trying
blaming takes a lot of energy, right?
Yeah.
Or it takes some energy to tweet it out.
Blaming and claiming, it's mine or it's yours. All of that is wasted effort if you're just trying to get to the answer.
And it's overcoming the inevitable obstacles. There's another racing team in Formula One. It's Force India, and it was Vijay Mallya started it, and he had Kingfisher, and he spent a lot of money. He ended up going bankrupt because
Kingfisher being the Indian beer.
The beer. He had an airline, and he went bankrupt. And in India, you just don't go bankrupt. There's a warrant for him.
They don't just go quietly into the
he's hiding out. He's hiding out in London, but he didn't have the money to keep funding his team, and so they were on a super shoestring budget. but they were doing quite well, even better than some of these funded English teams who are traditional ones. And their team, their leaders had to overcome the financial resource issues, as well as they didn't have an owner really well, he was on the run, so he's kind of looking out. But you can overcome those things. It's easy to blame, hey, we don't have the money. But when you come up with innovation, I think that's the one thing about sports is most of the successful teams have to come up with a way besides spending to create an advantage.
Well, and in sports, there's an immediate feedback. You win, you lose. It's measured in the moment. If you're in the marketplace, it might take a while to figure out whether you're going to win or lose. Maybe we're not selling, but hey, we're on the right track. We're getting there. We're going. It's okay. And then finally you realize, no, we're flogging a dead horse here. So it's in sports. I think there's much more immediate feedback, and therefore you have to adapt quicker. You can't just say, well, we'll keep doing this over and over again. And
it's really visible, right?
It's very visible.
Well, you guys lost a lot of games.
Yeah, right.
We spent a lot of money.
Right. Hard to overlook that. So why wouldn't you just stay and be a consultant if you love taking things apart? If you don't love taking it apart, but if you love trying to understand a problem and fix it, then why wouldn't you be the hired gun that comes in, cleans up the town, and then rides on to the next?
Well, that's what I did from a finance standpoint. I could clean up the financials and organize them and help you understand them, but inevitably the mess grows back because it's behaviors.
Well, yeah,
and it's the culture and it's the decisions. And one of the things I found out in this unique ability process is wooing people to the best way. It was the second to lowest score I had.
You're not a wooer.
Apparently I'm not a wooer. So, but I do like to
You're
do
a doer
things.
and not a wooer.
I am not a wooer, and which also goes to I probably wouldn't have been good selling a service door to door to something since I'm not wooing people and trying to get them to like me. So it's all about that. And I actually ended up, after writing the book, people were calling me and emailing me, and I got more and more clients that wanted coaching.
Yeah.
And I actually struggled with it because I wasn't used to just talking about an issue, asking them questions, and not solving the problem.
It wasn't encouraging a change in behavior. You wanted to just tell them how to change.
Well, it just,
difference between a consultant and a coach. We talked about a lot on this station. A coach is there not to give you the answer, but to help you find the answer, often within you, like a therapist. But the consultant is there to come in and say, all right, you hired my opinion, so do this, and do this. And they say, well, I don't like that. I don't agree with it. Well, I'm sorry, but that's what I see it. I've done this a million times, and you're paying for my ideas and advice. This is what I say. Do this, do this, do this. And they either do or don't. But a coach is there to help you sort of uncover and explore something and try and the good coaches try and resist telling you along the way what they think.
Well, and it's far more powerful to the brain when you come to your own realization than to be told. I mean,
right.
As kids, we didn't like our parents to tell us what to do.
No.
So there's that one issue, and then there's the issue of we don't like pain, and so if part of the process is firing somebody or getting out of a business, a part of your business, and maybe having a smaller business but more profitable business, hey, I don't want the pain of looking like a failure or having to deal with that hard conversation. And so there's an avoidance of pain. And so we're always getting back to kind of like, how are we wired? And how am I wired? I'm not wired to be patient enough to keep asking questions until,
especially if you think you know the answer.
Yeah, I mean that's just
I struggle with that too. I just want to jump in and okay, I'm not going to keep asking here. Let me just do it.
Yeah, it is the old Saturday Night Live skit where the guy fixes the computers and he's like, he would say to the person with the computer problem, "Move," I'll do it. And so that's where I'd like to go now is to implement it with my money on the line, and see how it goes.
See if you can get people to move. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break and come back and explore some other issues here. We've kind of caught up with you and your self-discovery. Let's see what else we can discover on this, the last in-studio episode of Confident ROI.
When you use the Premier Rewards Gold Card from American Express, the rewards points can keep on multiplying. Buy 3 with triple points on airfare. Buy 2 with double points on gas and groceries. And a single point for pretty much every other dollar you spend on the card. Then, start choosing from over 1 million rewards to redeem all those points. Apply today and the annual fee for the first year is on us. Call 1-800-AXP-GOLD or visit AXPGold.com. The annual fee for the card is $175. See terms, conditions, and restrictions at AXPGold.com.
Do you want a free analysis of your inbound marketing? Do you want it in 30 seconds or less? Then check out Marketing Grader, the free marketing tool from HubSpot. It's simple. Just go to marketinggrader.com, enter the URL that you want to analyze, and Marketing Grader will instantly give you a detailed report grading your lead generation, mobile marketing, social media, competitive benchmarking, and more. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's free. marketinggrader.com. All right, we're back. This is the farewell tour for Confident ROI, at least down here in Orange County, as he's moved up to Boise. How did you pick Boise out of the place? I don't think I've ever asked you that before.
Oh, really?
I'm sure you had some criteria you're looking for, but Boise's a big jump from Orange County.
Well, my wife spent time up there as a kid. Her grandparents and aunt lived up there in the western part of the Treasure Valley.
Okay.
And she hated it. Absolutely hated it. It was very rural and very non-cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
And so she ended up going up to Eagle, Idaho, was where we settled. She hadn't spent much time there, but it was kind of the north central part of the valley. It has a horse community. And she rode a horse called Mario Andretti. And, I love racing.
You love racing.
So, but the horse, you couldn't stop the horse. You literally, they're like, well, just turn it into the fence. And so she just hated the horse because it was very hard to control it. Turns out it's a great horse, but she goes, I don't like the horse, but I like the area. What about this area? And I had really wanted to try living in lower density. I was born in Los Angeles here and raised in Orange County. And so trying to live with a little lower density, and so far so good. And I was reminded of it on the drive over here this morning. They merge better in Idaho. It's not this.
They don't cut you off, right?
Yeah, it's not this kind of competitive arse being who's the bigger arse. Today I was driving and this lady was merging from the right, and she was just behind me, and there wasn't that much room in front of me, and she just punched it, stuck her nose in, and slammed on the brakes when there was nobody behind me.
Now, see, I grew up in a more cosmopolitan area, and so I've tried to live in more rural places a couple of times in my life, thinking that would be romantic and fun and different. I hated it because I found it slow. They just pull out and they're just talking and they're just poking along, and I want to go.
Well, there's enough Californians there now. It's speeding up in what. We're very limited on the rural. We're kind of on the northern edge of town, and it's developing very fast. We're up against some federal BLM land. So, and the density is just zone lower density, but we're 5 minutes from the Fred Meyer and the Albertsons and the Starbucks, but it's rural there. So it's just on the edge.
Right.
And so I still can.
Yeah, I got to have both. I can't be too far out.
Yeah, I was talking to someone who moved farther out from, and it wasn't going so well because they definitely were more isolated. So just enough elbow room, but just also the benefits.
I had a very good friend I grew up with in high school, and he went into manufacturing and running plants, and so they would send him to these remote places. I remember once it was someplace out in Kansas, and that's where they build these giant plants. The land's cheap, the labor's cheap, and they go in the middle of nowhere and they plop this plant down. And it was a real culture shock to him because, for example, they had to plan a weekend to go shopping.
Yeah.
There's no
Well, that was
Target.
before the internet, right?
Well, exactly. It was before the internet. So you had to, this is the weekend. We're going to drive 2 hours up to the big city and we're going to get a hotel room and all we're going to do is go shop. We're going to stock up on toilet paper and other necessities here. We're going to go to Target. We're going to go to Macy's. We're going to go to these. There was no, and just the thought of that made me quiver, that you can't just go get something. That's just so foreign to me.
Well,
there's no stores in the town.
Yeah, there's plenty of stores. There's Targets and everything. The other, I mean, just from a family standpoint, my wife and daughter are ecstatic, and especially my daughter, she's just got up there and thrived. So just from that standpoint, it's been well worth it.
That's good. All right, so you made the move, and then you started thinking, well, maybe I don't need to be on the road and on planes servicing my accounts down here or other places around the world. Maybe I can settle down and find something local. And so you've gone through this process. How did you find a strategic coach? How did you find somebody to go? You're very analytical. Most people wouldn't go do that. So I'm going to go find out what I don't. I'm going to uncover what I don't know, and I'm going to have somebody help me do that.
Well, I'm always in the kind of that researching, learning mode.
Right, clearly.
And
right.
I had a friend last year, still here, and I was walking with her, Giselle Chapman, and she was telling me about Strategic Coach. And at the time, I was definitely focused on my consulting, and she thought it would be of benefit to me. And so I started researching it and talking with them, and kind of took like a 6-month process for me to do my due diligence and look under the hood. But I found it was really a good fit for me and where I was. And even as my vision changed, it was actually even better for me because it helped me give some tools that some of the other business concepts that we've talked about, EOS and scaling up, they really don't address. They really are company focused.
Yes, right.
Not so much on the individual leader, and helping them figure out what's optimal for them to be doing and how to use their time.
There are a variety of processes out there that you can take. The what is it? The Myers-Briggs personality test, or what's the other one with the?
There's a DISC.
DISC. That's the one that everybody talks about. I don't know, but you might discover some of your wiring, but I don't know how you find your true north, your passion, your purpose.
I think it's a triangulation, and
Okay.
it's a process. There's a difference between your purpose and, hey, what are you really good at and like doing, and it doesn't suck the life out of you.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's what I've taken a lot of the tests, and I've gotten a lot of training in DISC and other ones, and I think it's a triangulation.
How so? Because we have people come in here all the time say, well, you just got to find your purpose, you got to find your passion, like you just, there it is under the couch. I was looking for it. Oh, there it is. And it's so easy to find. And I'm not sure. Everybody says, well, you know what you like to do, don't you? And I said, well, yeah, but I like to do lots of things.
When is it on your, when you're growing up, when is it on your list of things of, hey, discover what you're really good at. You're going to school and you got to get good grades.
Right.
Whether or not you want to or not. And you get into high school and college, it's not really about identifying what you're good at. For me, it was like, hey, I wanted to get a job because I was really concerned. And one of the profiles that I did with this unique ability it's called the print. And one of the colleagues of Edward Deming came up with it in order to crack the people nut of things. Edward Deming, the quality TQM
exactly.
and Toyota.
Right.
And one of the
just in time and all that stuff.
One of the things it does is really identifying your underlying motivators, because there's things underneath the surface and there's things at the surface level and how you do things. And so understanding your motivators is really important. We talked about earlier about that lady who wanted to make sure something was right. That's one of her motivators, is making sure something's absolutely correct. And when you understand that's just under the surface, it ain't changing, it helps you understand then on the surface, okay, how does she do things? Does she like to do systems, or she like to innovate
She like to go
things?
fast, she like to go slow, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that you it's a triangulation of things versus and that's where your purpose can come from. When someone likes to make things, grow people, improve them, that nurturing element, you triangulate that from the motivations that aren't seen to your behaviors you like to do.
But most of us don't really know, even when we graduate from school, what we want to do with our life. I know that sounds blasphemy. That's the whole purpose, especially today. It costs so much money to go through school. You better not be just wandering through. And my generation, it was much more like that. We all got this sort of general liberal education. You dabbled in a little bit of everything, and you saw, oh, that's interesting. And maybe the idea was you'd stumble on something. But what if you didn't? And then you came out and you said, well, there were lots of things I sort of liked. That was interesting, but there's no one that stands out. There's no burning passion. As opposed to, I was saying we had a kid in here the other day, all they ever wanted to do is play baseball. Now he's a professional baseball player. Or somebody who always wanted to be a doctor. Or somebody always knew they liked science. I envy those people because I had maybe too many things I liked to do. I liked a lot of things. And so I spent many years wandering around and changing careers and trying lots of different things. I do think I like this a lot, but that isn't to say there aren't other things I could be equally passionate about. I think it's not so easy, at least it wasn't for me, and I wonder how, I'm listening to your story, how you find that passion and purpose. Is it just a coach? Is it just going up on a mountain and delving deep within here?
One of it's the space for it to happen. I mean, when we start working, even in college and high school, we're very busy. Everyone tends to be busy. You rarely hear people like, I'm not that busy.
Yeah.
Everyone's busy, and so there's not that space to really think about things. And frankly, when I moved up there, and I was still doing consulting, but I had a little more time to think about things. And after, when I'd be done with a call, it was like, this is just not right. This doesn't feel right. And having that space to develop it and to think it through and find the right process. One is, it's very hard to do when you don't know how to do it. But if you got a process and framework and you can trust it, now all of a sudden, okay, there are some steps. So I went through steps where I tracked what I was doing. I took an inventory and essentially the verbs of what I was doing. And then I rated them. Hey, did I really
Well, you're really analytical. I can't think myself sitting here all day tracking everything I did and then giving it a rating here.
Well,
I mean, it's a great idea, but I just, again, we're caught, because the other thing is there's an urgency to it. I got to make some money.
Well,
I got to go get a job. I got to feed my family. I got to pay the rent.
And that's one of my motivators is safety and developing, having a safe, having the resources.
Right.
So that drives me, and I worry all the time about that kind of. But when I understand, like, okay, that's a motivator. What can I do about it? But also, doing something that doesn't suck energy from me, because I've had things where it's like, I'm tired after I do them.
Yeah.
But I've also had things where when I wrote the book, it didn't drain me.
You could do it all day.
Yeah.
Time flew, yeah.
When I was researching the things and learning about things, when I do the confident ROI, when I'm interviewing somebody and learning something like, oh, that's how they did it. And that's, another piece or something that hopefully I can use in the future.
I'm just going to throw out a little plug for doing these kinds of shows. One of the things I've heard I never anticipated is several hosts come in here and they say, it's the only time in my week that I don't have an agenda. I literally force myself to sit and talk and learn and listen. And I wish I could do that all week. But, gee, I'm in a hurry. I got a project. I got a deadline. I got to get somewhere. It's something that we don't do enough of. It's what you're talking about, creating a space and a place that you can just explore and talk. And
yeah, and for me, I have appointments now, right? And I tell my guests that, hey, think of it, we're going to the cafe to have a coffee, and we're going to talk about your stories, my stories. And if someone's sitting next to us, they can follow along.
right.
And it's enjoyable. There's a reason why Europe has had these cafes for so long.
Yeah, right.
And it's
Ireland and their pubs, yeah.
yeah,
Right.
that sharing stories is an important aspect of the human experience.
It's part of our tribe. It's part of our DNA.
But not for everybody. But I enjoy it. You enjoy it.
Yeah.
Not everybody enjoys it. I mean, for some people, the unknown of where this conversation can go, I mean, that creates a lot of stress.
Well, and they're always trying to say, well, what's the point? So get to the point. Well, the point is I'm going to learn. The point is I'm going to listen. The point is I'm going to explore. The point is I'm going to put time aside to do what I don't do and slow down.
Or the point is, hey, that's not a good way to tell a story. One of the things about storytelling is that the point isn't overwhelmingly obvious. It's something for someone to come to their own conclusion. I think there's some similarities with songwriting, and some of the best songwriters tell stories, but they also tell them in a way that they're open and people can have their own interpretations.
Right. And yet you're doing it. It is artificial because unlike the trip to the pub or the cafe, you got an hour, and something has to transpire in that hour. And when it's done right, there is sort of an arc to telling. There is an art to telling stories, to start and to take you through the challenges and then to come to some sort of takeaway, conclusion, moral of the story.
You can put Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, right?
I mean,
he was a story hour, and you could get the point, but he didn't tell you the point.
He didn't hit you over the head with it, right? Yeah.
And
it took a while for it to unfold, and that was the joy of it. This is long form storytelling. This is a slow, old-fashioned way of doing it. It's not 140 characters and trying to quickly convey something. But that allows some exploration and some surprise to happen. When these shows work well, it's when you get you don't just try and push an agenda. You're open. You're listening. You're trying to see where this is going to go. Maybe you try and guide it, move it along a little bit, but you're open to being vulnerable and you're open to surprises.
The human experience.
Yeah.
And you're doing it with people, and I know, like, when I'm traveling, listening to a podcast that is familiar, it helps me feel like, hey, I'm not just sitting alone in a hotel room.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want to do is turn on the local news. I mean, that is some frightening stuff.
Okay. The news everywhere is frightening these days. All right, so what else can we leave people with? Are you any closer to making a decision?
I'm in the process of doing the due diligence, and there will be updates to come.
Yeah, I hope people will
Obviously,
continue. Where can they continue to follow your story after this?
Obviously at confidentroi.com, as well as where you find your podcast today.
So the story will continue. You just won't be coming down here.
The story will continue. I will not be here on the video camera, the OC Talk Radio Net, until a later date.
Until it's time again.
It's been a lot of fun in that, and it helped me articulate concepts out there that I think that's another one of the things that the show does. Is it's one thing to have something in your head, it's another thing to talk about it. And as people listen to this, like, Alex has that thing where he starts a sentence and then starts it again, and he's looking for a thought. It's a brain looking for a thought, and having that practice of it is a benefit.
That is something else I've seen people get out of this process. It helps you to tell stories. It helps you to talk. It helps you to listen. And it helps you to be open and interested.
Yeah. I don't know if we have time for how playing gin helped me.
Okay. We got 5 minutes.
Well, I was down here about 3 months ago, and I got a call to they needed a fourth for gin. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't played gin in forever.
My father was a fanatic in gin, was really good at it, and we used to play all the time as a kid. My wife and I play sometimes. That's one of those old-fashioned games you don't see people do very often.
Well, we don't have to kill time anymore on an airplane, right? We all have our own phones.
That's
and
true.
if we like playing gin, we could play it on the app.
Yeah.
The
That's true. My dad used to, because he traveled a lot with business and stuff, so that was a time killer. They'd go to the bar and they'd play gin for a couple hours.
Yeah, but you're interacting with people and you're
Right.
having to use your brain. So anyways, I got invited down, and my wife kind of looked at me like I was nuts. But it was great. I made some stupid moves, and but it was enjoyable. So I got the app, and I started playing. I wanted to get better at it, and I started playing it kind of daily. And it kind of just got just instead of always liking to read things, it got me kind of analyzing the game and what's the optimal moves. And I was losing more than I was winning against the computer. And over time, I started played 500. I was even, win one, lose one. And then over time, I started to build up. I'd win more than I'd lose. And it was an analyzation of, what am I doing wrong? Where is the computer winning? But the big thing I learned was the discard, as I shouldn't pick them up as much as I was.
Mm.
And what I found, it was the more often where I'd go to the pile and pick a new card and not know what I'd get, versus, oh, hey, this kind of fits, and if I get another
might
card,
work. Yeah, maybe I'll get a third 6 here. And
I'd
I'll
pick
try
up a lot of cards from the discard pile. But the more I picked, and I kind of was keeping a mental track in my mind, when I wasn't sure whether to pick up the discard or not, the more often than not, when I picked up that new card, it was a great fit. And it was something I didn't even think about. But it gave me, I was looking for new opportunities. And so that was with looking for deals. It became, hey, let's go get another card. Because there's a lot of discarded deals out there on the internet and people. But by calling people, not just brokers, but people that might know people that are selling their business, be it Vistas chairs, bankers. And I just kept playing cards. And there was this one discarded deal on the internet. And it was such a good write-up, or it was so open and objective. It kind of showed some of the fleas on the deal. I called the broker finally. He said, no, it's sold, but I got this other one for you. And it wasn't on the internet. I wouldn't have found it unless I had made that call. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting. And so it was playing that gin of, hey, go pull another card. Not just analyzing what one is face up and may or may not be a fit, mm-hmm. and trying to get it to fit in your hand.
I get it.
But in doing that, so that
trust that there might be something better coming than the opportunity staring you in the face.
Pull cards, because I think it feels like a lower risk move to pull a discarded card, and you can see how it might fit. I mean, it's obvious. Hey, if you get a meld when you
you don't know you don't know what's coming next, but you can sort of see a fit. You can convince yourself this might work, as opposed to the next card.
You talk yourself into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus, hey, wow, because a lot of times you're not going to get an ace. You're not going to get those good cards.
Right.
You aren't going to be discarded unless they're in a better position. And so to pick those, you got to try to find those good cards. And
I'll tell you quickly, my father's strategy was, he preached over and over again in playing the game, because it's obviously trying to go down as quickly as you can. It's all for him about just discarding stuff rather than accumulating stuff. He was, why are you picking that up? Just take what you got and work it, and take the high cards and get rid of them as quick as you can, and get down under 10 points so you can go down as fast. His whole idea was to go down as fast as he could,
and
that's catch you with a bunch of other cards that you hadn't matched yet.
And I played 1,000 hands, and that I learned it around 300 hands. Is don't be accumulating. And you really got to discard, and you got to have a discipline. There is an element of, can you hold on one hand, one round, see if you get that card,
right?
Or trying to get the person to discard.
He was very disciplined. I'm not gonna chase anything here. I'm gonna take the obvious, easy route, and I'm gonna get down under 10 points as quick as I can.
Did he knock a lot?
Yeah, he went down real quick.
I found that the bot that I'm playing against, a lot of times it knocks, and I get more undercuts now than gins, because I figured out its pattern on how it likes to to get to.
Yeah, my dad rarely matched them all. Rarely got gin. He didn't have the patience to wait for that. His was just to go down as quick as I could. He'd go down with 7 points, 8 points, whatever he could. He'd get down as quick as he could, and he'd go.
Figured if you're accumulating,
right?
Got you.
Especially if he saw you picking up stuff all the time, he thought, I got you, and so he wouldn't waste time. And he was ruthless. He was relentless. You know, I would say, well, you got 2 of them. Why are you throwing one away? It's time. Just throw as quickly as discarding his stuff. All he wanted to do was get down to under 10 as quick as he could, any way, shape, or form. So anyway, lots of strategies to do. I wish you the best of luck. We've enjoyed the time that you spent with us, and we look forward to hearing your continuing journey. I hope you'll keep us in the loop.
And I can say, Paul, I've gotten a great ROI from being on the OC Talk Radio Net. It's been a lot of fun, both financially and from an emotional standpoint, and I'm going to miss our conversations.
I am too. Well, hopefully we'll have you back someday when you find something else to tell and share with us.
We might. Can we have breaking news?
Yeah, I think we should.
All right.
We should have a way to update. So weekend update here. We'll go back to Saturday Night Live. Weekend updates here.
All right.
All right. Thanks for coming. Well, you've been listening to the final episode, at least from our studios here, on Confident ROI, but we're confident the story will continue, so keep tuning in to ConfidentROI.com.
This is CBS News.